Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Dude here, and today we're back with a brand new video. This time we're going to be doing a setup for the Audi R8 Evo. Now this car is extremely unique. Now I know I say that for a lot of cars, but this one truly is, in the sense that you can actually upgrade the aero parts on this vehicle. Now if you're running obviously with balancer performance enabled, the wing and the diffuser adjustments will just be cosmetic, but if you're running either in performance points rated lobbies or fully upgraded GR3 lobbies, essentially you get a free rear wing that provides much more downforce. Before we get into the tune here, guys, if you do enjoy the video and or the setup, leaving a like, comment, and also subscribing is super helpful for me, and I would greatly appreciate that. But without further ado, let's get into the setup. So obviously today with the setup, we're starting in a different part of the menus. I'm actually in the GT Auto customization area. So if you select the custom parts here, you can actually upgrade the rear wing to provide you with more downforce. It's no secret that the MR cars are a little bit difficult to drive in this game, and I think this is a huge, massive advantage for this car to have this option. You could also upgrade the diffuser. To my knowledge, I do not believe this actually affects performance, but you can definitely do that as well. I did on my car just to kind of keep consistency for the setup, and this is essential to the setup working properly. I haven't tried taking the custom wing off and trying my setup, but I imagine it would be extremely oversteery and difficult to drive, so ensure that you have this wing enabled. So now in the suspension of the car, of course, the first thing to note is obviously we have the downforce all the way up. In the rear, it's actually all the way up to 800 now with this upgraded rear wing, and the rest of the setup is actually very standard. You could actually almost set this up like an FR car and not an MR car, other than the braking sensitivity, of course, being at 60 to keep the car nice and stable when you're lifting off the throttle. But otherwise, this car is extremely stable and extremely easy to drive for an MR. I really do wish that a lot of the other MR cars had this rear wing option, to be honest with you. It would make them so much better. But yeah, this setup is pretty straightforward as far as the suspension, the drivetrain, and the aerodynamics go. Now in the transmission, this car doesn't have an immense amount of torque, so I do have the first and second gear really long, but maybe not quite as long as I would on some other cars, but they are long nonetheless to help you with traction. Now if you do run traction control, I do find having a really long first and second gear to not be as helpful. You're almost going to want to move those to the right to make them a little bit shorter and have a little bit less speed in first and second gear to kind of make the traction control work a little bit more, say, conventionally. Otherwise, this transmission should work perfectly for you. The gears are set up pretty nice to keep the car in its optimal power band as long as possible. And again, this is set up for max power minimum weight at Trial Mountain. So if you're running on a track that has a shorter straightaway than Trial Mountain, then you're going to want to move the final gear at the bottom to the right. If you have a track with a longer straightaway than Trial Mountain, you're going to want to move the final gear at the bottom to the left. And obviously, if you're running the BOP, balance and performance enabled, you're going to have to move it to the right just to compensate for the lack of power, so you could have more optimal gears for the particular build that you're rocking. Yeah, but that's about it for this setup here, guys. Honestly, tracks that I recommend this car on for max horsepower and minimum weight, it's pretty much like anywhere you can run. It's extremely strong. The straight line speed isn't going to rival something like the DBR9 or the Ford, or any of the Fords for that matter, but it does have amazing traction and amazing low speed agility, and I do think it will beat many of those faster cars on tracks that are more tight and twisty and have a lot more traction zones. I'm thinking places like Nürburgring GP, even Kyoto Driving Park. I imagine this thing is going to rotate quite well, be very stable, easy to drive. It's not the nicest over curbs, I will say that. There are certain curbs where you do want to kind of avoid them at all costs, but otherwise it is a very nice driving experience overall, and I do recommend it on pretty much any track, but I would lean towards the handling side of things rather than the top end side of things. Now, of course, our reference lap today is going to be at Trial Mountain, so without further ado, let's get into that. So here we are at Trial Mountain Circuit in the Audi R8 Evo. Now, like I said, the rear wing on this car honestly completely transforms the way it handles, like more than any sort of setup ever could, and I'm really interested to see where this stacks up on our leaderboard. Little tiny dab of the brake, mostly lifting here going into this S section. Again, this is very stable. A little bit rough over the curbs, but we keep it together for this lap. Turn into the apex here, little bit of a slide at low speed, but it's a good slide. It helps the car rotate, it helps the car yaw. Once again, that aero balance really helping at low and high speed, keeping the car nice and stable. You can honestly feel the rotation because it's an MR on entry without actually losing the rear completely. Just barely missed the wall there on the outside. Get a good run down this straightaway. Now, I know a lot of people are talking about really struggling getting any sort of slip angle and being able to correct it in this game. But if you do have a good setup and the car's aero balance is right, I mean, not bad. Hard on the brakes here. A little bit of a late apex, a little later than I would have liked, but very early on the throttle, like ridiculously early. Carry a ton of speed through here, hard on the brakes once again. Can get a little sketchy through here, a little counter steer action. We keep it together, keep the speed up. Hard on the brakes once again, lots of elevation change, not really too fond of the curbs. Good exit up on our Ghost here. And my least favorite part of the track, of course, but we're hard on the brakes. First gear, get right on that curb. Get as good of an angle as you can here for the last corner, don't tap the wall. Very nice. And we hug the wall here on the left side. Going to come to the line. It's looking like a 141 as we come to the line, and 141.8. Now that is actually extremely quick. It really puts us right up there in the mix with the DBR9. Now it's not quite as fast, but it is right there. And I do think this thing is extremely impressive. And you guys are going to absolutely love it. Again, on handling tracks, I don't think there is a better option right now. The Porsche is quite a ways off this car, honestly, in this game. I think mostly just because of that rear wing upgrade really helping it out. I do think having that extra rear downforce in this game is extremely important. In the last game, it was a little bit less important. In fact, on some cars, you would actually take off rear downforce. But in this game, you want all the rear grip you can get, and you do benefit from it greatly. So before I close out, guys, I want to say thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video and or the setup, to leave a like, comment, and subscribe would be extremely helpful for me. Of course, 79% of the people watching these videos are currently not subscribed. So if you guys can do that, I would greatly appreciate it. This is a very formidable weapon to have in your GR3 arsenal. I think it's probably one of the best in the entire game, fully upgraded. And with the BOP, obviously the setup isn't going to work and it's not going to apply just because the wing doesn't apply when you're using the balance and performance. But I know most people like to do a lot of PP racing through the campaigns and such. And I do think having that rear wing and possibly that diffuser as well, in conjunction with this setup, is going to warrant some extremely strong results. So yeah, that's about it for me, guys. I hope you all have a fantastic night, and I'm out. Peace.